Well, hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you, Stelfers, for February 27th, the day of the Reality Masters. All right, a little bit of a mouthful of a title there. Here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the Reality Masters. If the book will stop fighting me here, we have, what is it? Boom, it appears to be a turtle with a hourglass on its back. That's right. And if you look closely, it looks to be that the time is half run out. That's right. What kind of turtle is it? A no-telling. Now, maybe a snapping turtle. Yeah, that's the reality of turtles there. That being said, visual representational image aside, sometimes you can make connotations for why they chose what they chose, but most of the time not. It's not important, though. What is important, though, is it's February 27th, and it's somebody's birthday. So if your birthday is February 27th, what's important around here is wishing you a happy birthday. So if you take nothing else from the video, hey, I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. But if this video finds you late, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that circumstance. But for everybody else who's joining us to celebrate or just curious about the day, I want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to take a couple minutes to do, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us a 5 and a 2 for a 7. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe or the higher powers that be, whatever you like, are apt to put things in our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our aspirations. But oftentimes we got the blinders on to what's going on around us. Not to say we don't see things going on around us, but we might not lend them much significance. So if the universe is apt to throw something in your path, you might not see it for what it is. So this is a little bit of an exercise, if you like, to help us get those blinders off, to help us start recognizing the things the universe is throwing out there for us. But how do we do that? Well, we need some kind of sign that's mutually agreed upon between us and the universe, something we can hopefully recognize. That's right, your daily numbers. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you take your own set of dice if this is something you want to try out. So you can ascribe directional values to number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. That said, once you have all that established, I don't know, pick a place near and dear to your heart or maybe some place you haven't explored before and then set out. But like I said, get those blinders off, all right? You never know, the day might start to take on just a little bit of a theme. Let's take the visual representational image, for instance, turtle in an hourglass. Hey, you might actually start to see such things out there in the wild. Not to say like real turtles, real hourglasses, though that might present, but you might start seeing them on like bus benches or advertisements, or maybe as a mural on the side of a building or a sticker on the side of a transformer box. You never know. Maybe some little kid's carrying his turtle in a little caddy. I don't know. You never know. It's just it's something you got to keep your eyes open for. And that's just an example. It could be just about anything. So you want to take note of things that start coming across your path, because I would say that's an indication that the universe is telling you it's with you right there. So let's say you get your dice roll going and maybe you're on Main Street. I don't know. So you get your northwesterly direction, I suppose, whatever you decide is your dice numbers there, and maybe a 5-minute time limit. Well, at the end of that time limit, maybe you're not seeing much of anything at all right, just the everyday goings on. Well, in that case, don't be dissuaded. Hey, you're out there getting your steps in at the very least, but maybe take a step back, see what's going on around you, and maybe just so happen to notice that you're on old 7th Street. That's right, 7th and Main, perhaps. I would take that as a sign you're on the right path, all right? And then maybe no sooner do you notice as much, the number 7 bus pulls up in front of you. Oh, how about that? And maybe it's got an advertisement on the side of it that's got an hourglass incorporated into it. Who's to say? But that being said, I would take that as a sign that you should ride the bus. That's right. And maybe you just so happen to have perfect change in your pocket for the fare. All right. Now, you might not be someone who likes to ride the bus, but hey, this is a sign. All right. But hey, you know what? Maybe you're not convinced. And then, you know what? Maybe the bus takes off. Say, you know what? As I hear it told, even if we are apt to maybe not advise or not take note of the things that the universe puts in our path, it will put them back in our path as we get along. So maybe you roll the dice to go down the street another way. I don't know. Maybe you're going down 7th at this point, all right? You follow your time limit. Maybe at the end of that, hey, you end up at a pet shop. All right, and maybe no sooner does that happen, hey, somebody comes out of the pet shop, and what is this? Hey, maybe it's an old friend from college that you haven't seen in years. That would be pretty interesting. Well, hey, what are you doing here? Well, you'd think I was getting turtle food, but not the case. I'm just out here on a synchronicity walk. And they're like, what are you talking about? Hey, you know what? Show them this video. Show them the dice. Like, I didn't realize it was your birthday today. Like, yeah, just so happens to be. Just so happens to be. And you know what? They might think it's a little crazy you're out there doing this. Hey, you know what? You think it's crazy too, but hey, you know what? They might just be apt to join you for as much. And you know what? Maybe they were in the market for some turtle food, and so that's what they got carrying around with them. Who's to say? But maybe that bus just so happens to stop right up there at another crossroads there ahead of you. Now you have an opportunity to get back on. And maybe this individual will go with you because they want to see what happens. Hey, they were getting the turtle food. They see the hourglass on the advertisement there. I would say things are getting synchronous, all right? So, hey, you know what? I think you get the idea. So get out there. Let the universe show you it's with you on your path. And drum up some synchronicities, some coincidences if you like, stack them up, and if you see or taste, touch, smell, or intuit any of them, you'll understand why I brought it up. It's just kind of interesting to see those things start to come to pass. That having been said, let's get on with the birthday read. Your month is February, a day is the 27th, your sign is 7 to 9 degrees Pisces, of the Pisces 1 period specifically, and your quality and element is mutable water. All right, February 27th, the day of the reality masters. Those born on February 27 are extremely insightful into the workings of the world around them. They spend a great deal of energy coming to understand the basic elements of everyday life, how things work, why people act the way they do, and how to work to the advantage with their environment. But this is only the beginning. From this solid reality base, February 27th people allow their questioning spirits to explore outward to social, international, and universal spheres as well. And because they build solidly at each step of the way, they can confidently count on the wisdom that they have culled from experience to see them through new and perhaps increasingly ambitious endeavors. The greatest difficulties for February 27th people usually surface in their personal lives, because they are extremely demanding individuals, and also since their intuitive choices in relationships are not often the most suitable for them, to say the least, it says, they can have tumultuous and often chaotic love lives. And for some reason, for all their understanding of the world and their capacity to make their way in it, they often know surprisingly little about themselves, other than what they think they want. To learn the difference between what they want and what they truly need is an important distinction for them to grasp, and one which they hopefully make sooner rather than later in life. By satisfying their true needs, they can, of course, find greater emotional stability and happiness. And too often they feel that their problems can be solved by another person, and put too much energy into their romantic love lives, instead of seeking the solutions to their needs at a deeper level inside themselves. And given their emotional makeup, it is unlikely that those born on this day will experience much downtime between relationships, but an extended period alone could actually do them some good. And because of their thoughtful and sensitive nature, they should be able to accomplish much personal growth without outside help. And February 27 people are happiest when they can let their minds roam freely over a wide variety of subjects, and generally demand friends and mates who are also intellectually active. And those born on this day often struggle with their social environment in an attempt to somehow master it or perhaps redirect it. And their urge to dominate is very strong, and because of their magnetic powers are among the strongest in the entire year, they must be extremely careful not to overwhelm everyone around them. And if February 27 people lose moral direction, they have a great potential to bring destruction on themselves as well as others. And their capacity for not seeing the truth, but also bringing what they desire to pass through a rare combination of empathy and willpower, it presents them with great ethical and moral challenges. All right, very fascinating birthday breakdown today. I would say it might be one of the few that's really broken with a tradition that's kind of started since the beginning of Capricorn, and that is for the birthday breakdowns to be very hyper-focused. And here I would say this one was pretty well rounded out, even though they did kind of focus in a little bit. But I just kind of like to make mention of that when it pops up, because it seems to be just them changing tact, and so I like when they bring it back home to how they were originally writing the entries. Here nor there, let's dive in with a little bit of a commentary I like to provide for the birthday breakdowns. Sometimes make connections with days previous, maybe the period at large, and just things I found interesting. So let's dive into it here. You're insightful into the world's workings, and the reading claims you give a good deal of your time and energy to understanding how things and people around you work, and how you factor into such things and how you can use such realities to your advantage. But you're also apparently well faceted to apply the same eye to subjects outside the everyday goings-on of things. So you make highly curious, empirically faceted individuals from the sounds of it. And it's from the things that you learn and implement from all the experiences that you encounter that you're able to further bolster yourself with ambitious efforts. And with this in mind, the reading claims you make for very demanding people, all right, especially in your personal lives. Your intuitive choices are said to be or to not be suitable for relationships. Very interesting how bold they just come right out the gate and say that. They don't always do so, but I don't know. They're not really pulling any punches today, apparently. Though I would say a lack of context in this case is particularly unfortunate. They don't say how that comes to be. But I would say the takeaway is that your love life can be tumultuous and chaotic. All right, the likes of which I'm assuming there is some historical precedence for, to say other people who are born on this day that are known to have had as much happen in their lives. Having said that, the subject of want versus need is broached in this respect, and it's a valuable topic of interest that hasn't come up for a number of weeks. And the reading recommends diving into focusing on making this distinction so as to help find greater emotional stability as well as happiness. Though I argue it's equally valuable for just about everybody, all things being equal. The reading goes on to examine a line of thinking that involves the idea that other people or relationships themselves may provide solutions for your deeper needs, and going so far as to relate that you may not suffer much downtime in between relationships to that end. But the truth it may in fact be that time alone to discover such solutions to your needs may be a more beneficial answer. You just got to give yourself the opportunity to do as much. Sometimes there's some people who they just can't be alone, or they don't think that they can be alone because they never really tried it out. It's difficult, I would say. It's difficult. Furthermore, because of your particular nature, you may be ideally suited to do as much also, interestingly. For a very unique deep dive into the relationship/self-awareness dynamic that I haven't encountered before in the book. Of additional note is mention of an attraction to intellectually active individuals, both friends and lovers, they said, and your happiness hinging on curiosity, I would say. Struggle with social environments due to a desire to master them comes up, and how urges to dominate based on your strong magnetic influence stands as a power that may overwhelm others. They also mentioned a combination of empathy and willpower presenting with the great ethical and moral challenges that might come up therein. And it makes for probably one of the most well-rounded birthday breakdowns that have come up ever since before Capricorn there, like I said at the top. So I found this one particularly fascinating. They had a couple twists in there. They pulled the rug out a couple times. It surprised me. A lot of times you kind of get into these things thinking one way, like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get an idea for this individual. And then you're like thinking like, oh, okay, they'll probably be the same way with a relationship, say. And then, nope, they pull the rug right out. Pretty interesting. So in any event, that's what I had to say about your breakdown. Let's move on to your numbers and your planets. That's right. We're going to examine some astrology and numerology here. Perhaps. Let's get into it here. Those born on the 27th of the month are ruled by the number 9, as 2 plus 7 equals 9, and by the planet Mars. The number 9 is powerful in its influence on other numbers, as any number added to 9 yields that number. To say 5 plus 9 equals 14 and 1 plus 4 equals 5. And any number multiplied by 9 yields a 9. To say 9 times 5 is 45 and 4 plus 5 equals 9. And February 27 people are similarly able to influence those around them. And the planet Mars is forceful and aggressive. And this combination of Mars and Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, can grant February 27 people almost a hypnotic power over the minds of others. All right. Not too much was said here. The whole numbers thing kind of takes up so much of the Mars days when they bring it up. But they imparted a little bit. Otherwise, it's kind of a copy-paste job outside of that hypnotic mention of influencing people. But let's see what I had to say. Maybe I can expand it out here a little bit for you. The number 9 in the planet Mars for powerful influence over others and forceful and aggressive god of war-like energy, in addition to a draw toward adventure and high motivation to succeed, as is mentioned elsewhere in the book for Mars there. The combination with the watery planet Neptune, the ruler of visions and dreams, is said to impart a hypnotic power over the minds of others. A word used to describe the magnetic attraction ascribed to the folks born on yesterday, too, as it turns out. It's not a word that's often used. Maybe the first 2 times, actually. And whether there's any kind of carryover there between you and that individual, no telling. But Neptune is said to impart an ability to not only draw people in, but also dissolve barriers of absolute and rigid natures. And so I would say with the magnetic influence there on Neptune's part and this influential aspect of Mars, the two of them together probably makes you a force to be reckoned with when it comes to influencing and kind of drawing people in. So maybe that's why they talk about the hypnotics there. Though why it came up yesterday, no telling, because they had a totally different day in the rulership there. What was it? The Saturn they had, I believe. So, in any event, getting off track here, let's get back into it. So, no telling, but Neptune is said to impart an ability to draw people in, like I said. People falling under Neptune's influence are also said to impart a concern for high ideals, which has been an overwhelming through line throughout the whole Pisces period. Whether this applies to you isn't necessarily said, as the breakdown largely focuses on your relation to the world as well as yourself. But it's actually quite refreshing to come across, considering how hyper-focused that subject has been in this entire period. Everybody's committed to a cause. It just keeps coming up, and they're committed one way or another. That keeps it a little bit interesting. It's not the same old rote boilerplate type stuff. There's variation in it. But here it wasn't even mentioned for you, higher ideals. So maybe a little bit more focused on yourself. Not necessarily a bad thing, I wouldn't say, but like I said, refreshing for me because I don't have to relate somebody who's committed to a cause again, though that'll probably come back up tomorrow. Having said that, that's been your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot. That's right, your tarot. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but hey, we don't have to take it home with us to start dealing the cards out to, predict our future, however they're used. And then oftentimes we can make connotations with the reading. Sometimes. I don't know. We'll see what happens here and see if we can make some things work. And then we just leave it in a book there. So let's get into it here. The 9th card of the major arcana is the Hermit, who is usually depicted walking with a lantern and a stick. And he represents meditation, isolation, and quietude. And the Hermit also signifies crystallized wisdom and ultimate discipline. He is a taskmaster who motivates by conscience and guides others on their path. And this card points the way to the sort of spiritual development which February 27 people should pursue. Interesting. The positive indications of this card are stick-to-itiveness, purpose, profundity, as well as concentration. But the negative qualities include dogmatism, intolerance, and mistrust, as well as discouragement. All right. This particular tarot card is set up for an example of how to live your life. That doesn't often come up very often. It doesn't often present. But it's I think it was back in Capricorn, the first time it kind of, they swung it that way. So you got the interesting interpretation there. In any event, let's dive in. I'm probably getting ahead of myself. I got the Hermit here to signify crystallized wisdom and ultimate discipline. All right, with representations of meditation, isolation, and quietude. And I would agree it is quite the apt card, not just considering the spiritual and personal development that it endorses specifically, but the crystallized wisdom that must come with your curious approach to the world. All right? With positives of stick-to-itiveness and purpose, or profundity, or otherwise deep insight into things, I would say the ideas of success in your own personal efforts toward self-awareness are further endorsed here. All right, meditate on yourself, self-awareness, expand the mind, the spiritual, that kind of thing. I got negatives of dogmatism, or like practicing a kind of religion there. You're so committed to your ideas. Intolerance, mistrust, and discouragement. Also makes sense with regard to the knowledge that you derive in your endeavors and the realities you might face associated with the demands that you may make on others. That's right. They said you're demanding. That's where that dogmatism and such might kind of get baked into it. You get up on your soapbox and kind of preaching down to folks, and you got that God of War-like energy. You might come off a little bit aggressive. Who's to say? That's where the meditation and the quietude and the stick-to-itiveness and the profundity comes into the equation, I would say. And figuring out wants versus need. Do you really need to get people over onto your side so that they're believing in you like it's a religion? I would argue no, but you may want it. You may want it. You don't need it, though. Anyway, who's to say? Who am I to say? I know it's not the case for me. Maybe it is for you in actuality. That having been said, that's been your tarot. Hopefully you took some value from it. It stands as an example here for you today. Like I said, doesn't often occur. So, I don't know, maybe take note. That said, let's move on to your health. All right, your health. The transition there wasn't very good. Let's move on to your health. There we go. All right, those born on February 27th often know a surprising amount about health, even though they may have no formal training. However, they periodically forget everything they know and personally go off in an entirely unhealthy direction. Having benefit of a medical or alternative health authority whom they trust is crucial to their well-being. Vigorous physical exercise is recommended for those born on this day. To say running, aerobics, gymnastics, weightlifting, rock climbing, and ocean swimming, as well as sexual contentment with a steady partner. All right. February 27 people are prone to both alcohol and sex and love addictions, so they must develop the willpower to keep their turbulent natures under control. All right. Very interesting. Highly personalized. All right. Let's dive into the health here. Says you often know a surprising amount about your health despite no training, all right? And though you may not, and I would say that probably on account of your curiosity, all right? You're picking things up everywhere and then applying them. That said, it's interesting you may forget everything that you've learned and go off track, all right? I think that's the first time that's come up in the health. Pretty surprising there. Though I feel as though I completely understand, all right? So don't think you're alone in that regard. They said vigorous exercise is recommended, which is a return to form here. Back in the Aquarius period, every Mars day, they got like moderate to light exercise. When throughout the rest of the book, it's like dollars to donuts, vigorous or exercise, even combative sports. And here, I think you're the first day where that comes back into play. Uranus was up there shaking up everything in the planetary influences. And you got Neptune. Apparently it's not shaking things up. But it's actually surprising to me the vigorous comes up. Neptune kind of is an underlier there. It's typically more of a moderate kind of thing. People with their head in the clouds, they need to be more grounded. But hey, maybe that's another case for vigorous. Here nor there. Having been said, a steady partner for sexual contentment is mentioned. And I would say it's kind of a common sense recommendation. You start getting into the hedonism, and people can only keep that up for so long, before like their well-being starts. I think there's only 1 or 2 days I've come across the entire book where people can get away with it without it necessarily affecting their mental health. But it still was a recommendation that they cut it out at some point. So I haven't said that a consistent partner for loving relationships, but they mention sexual addiction in there too. Also love addiction, and that doesn't get brought up very often either. So may perhaps be on the lookout for as much, or being moderate or objective about as much. All right, get those tumultuous relationships in the mix. Hey, it's something we need to be aware of. Apparently. They didn't mention any kind of specific diet for you. A lot of times they don't, specifically since past Capricorn. They've really shaken up the format here. When the rest of the book, they were very religious about speaking to what foods you should incorporate into your diet. Here, again, they didn't do that. So they've been kind of following form. That said, the Pisces body areas are the lymphatic system and the lower legs, to say the feet and the toes. So it's been recommended once or twice to cut back on dairy because it helps. It doesn't help with the mucus production there. And you want to get that lymph going through your body, nice and flowing state kind of thing, to help with your immunity there. And also the exercise is going to help with that, considering all the lymph nodes being buried in muscle groups. And the human beings not having a secondary heart to pump as much. The muscles got to do it for you. So any event, also on 1 or 2 occasions, they were talking about thrombosis and embolism, concerns for the feet there. That came up quite a bit with Aquarius, so I was recommending people get some compression socks to kind of head that off at the pass. So pick your poison there. You don't want to get no strokes, I would assume. So maybe get yourself a pair of compression socks there. That having been said, that's been your health. So let's move on to some advice. All right, your advice. Bring your mastery over your environment to bear on yourself and follow your spiritual path wherever it takes you. But be kind to those you meet on the way, and tend to your own personal business, and don't get sidetracked. All right. Very valuable, I would say. Very valuable. And they brought in some things they don't often explore, the spiritual side of things. All right. Hey, what I had to say about what they had to say. They said, bring your mastery to bear on yourself. And I said, that's huge advice, all right? Whoever you are, I would say. And it seldom comes up also. Same as need versus wants, all right? I'd say it's huge. It's important. So you're getting all the gold today as far as recommendations are concerned. Remember that hermit and the crystallized wisdom in the meditation, all right? Self-awareness, propagate it. You can be your own salvation, all right? If you like. Okay. It also said follow your spiritual path. I'd say stay curious, all right? That's something to be very curious about. Very interesting. And it's apt to take you ever more important places than your everyday life, I would say. What else do we have here? Providing you're open to it. All right, that's the important part. But yes, be kind to folks along the way, which may be hard considering some of the people we just don't jive with, right? It's a test. What do they call it? I can't remember the ascended master. You gotta assume that they might be an ascended master and they're here on the earth to test you. They may have lived thousands of lives, and just this iteration here, they come down as somebody who tests other people's willpower. All right, that might be their spiritual contract in the matter if you ascribe to that line of thinking. So consider the ascended master. They may be here to test your willpower. What else do we have here? But there's no reason to ruin somebody else's day because you're not jiving with somebody on a base level interpretation there. They said tend to personal business. Don't get sidetracked. I'd say you get your personal business handled. All the other stuff will likely be easier to handle as well. What else do they have here? Or put it out of your mind once you're out of that environment. So hopefully you're able to do that. Sometimes all that junk follows you home, and so if you can get a handle on how to leave it at work, boom, it's going to be perfect for you. But that's where the self-awareness stuff comes in. It's kind of you kind of figure out where you need to work on such things. Like I always bring my stress home with me. You know that about yourself. You can start drilling down on how to improve upon that. How to leave it at home. And then I would say the tumultuous relationship stuff, that's going to start to improve a little bit, assuming that's an outside stressor that comes in and causes problems. But again, that's just an example of where the self-awareness might come into play there. That said, that's been your advice and what I had to say about it. Hopefully you took something to value out of it. We got into the ascended master. I don't think I've dove into that before. So there you go. You're getting all the gold today. That said, let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get a meditation. Something to reflect upon. All right, here we go. This one's pretty concise. Here we go. Necessity is a relative term. All right. Interesting. Something we kind of talked about, isn't it? Necessity is a relative term. All right. It's your birthday, your meditation. I'm not going to throw my spin on it or interpretation of as much for you. Will kind of defeat the purpose, wouldn't it? Excuse me. That having been said, your meditation in a can is a word. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold the objective mirror and see where we got the girth and where we're otherwise a little more deflated or atrophied within the metaphor. That's right. Just strengths. You're magnetic, you're capable, and you're worldly. Oh, worldly. You know what? I think that's the first time that's come up. That's right. Stay curious there. But your weaknesses, let's hold that objective mirror back up, but flip it to the side that blows up your face. Maybe shows off the things you're a little more superficially insecure about within the metaphor. That's right. Your weaknesses. You're self-unaware, demanding. We knew that one. Within the personal relationships there, apparently. And you're emotionally chaotic. Oh, that's the first. That's come up. That's the first. Oftentimes I like to try to make a case that our weaknesses can also be strengths, and or that if we want to improve upon our weaknesses, our strengths are going to help us do that. I've been having a little bit of trouble here the past few days, and I might have trouble trying to make a case here in this instance, but let's give it a shot, all right? It says you're magnetic, capable, and worldly. Now, how are we going to improve upon our weaknesses with that? You're self-unaware, demanding, and emotionally chaotic. Well, here's one you might not like to hear. If you're magnetic, you're going to draw people in, right? Ostensibly, the people who can help you figure those things out. Self-unaware. Hey, we got to work on such things. And maybe someone will just be apt to point that out to you, even though it's probably not what you want to hear. Capable, though. Capable. You have the ability within you to do it, all right? You're gonna rally if you can get over yourself, I would say. Worldly, hey, you know what? You're going to draw from all these different experiences that you've taken in, that curiosity coming to bear, bringing in all the tools that you've rallied to yourself, and you're going to be able to get over such things. Demanding, hey, you know what? We just got to be quiet, to practice that quietude, that meditation, and quell that stuff, silence it out. And you might pick that up in your travels there. Emotionally chaotic, you know what? Again, you're capable. You're going to be able to squash that, I would say. But the self-awareness is going to apply to all of that, I would say. Because you're self-unaware. We need to fix that, I would say. All right? But how can those be strengths then? Well, let's see what we can do here. Sometimes these don't make a lot of sense. Self-unaware, I would say if you know that about yourself, well, hey, you're halfway home. You're all right. You're aware that you're self-unaware. But you can use that as a tool in your bag there. You know how to be self-unaware. So let's say you're at the job and somebody wants to hand off a project that you really don't want to do. Well, how do we get around that? Well, maybe they know you're not very aware of things. That's right. So you know how to do that. Maybe now they're going to be like, you know what? Let's give it to somebody else. All right. You know what? Not the most savory of ways to use our strengths. But again, maybe you know you wouldn't be the best individual for that particular project, so you've got to find a way to get them to give it to somebody else. Demanding, how can that be a strength? Well, you know what? Sometimes we need to get our point across. Some people aren't apt to pick up on it. And I would say if you're using it too much, it might be a little boy cried wolf kind of situation. They're always demanding. You know, it's over the most trivial of things. We need to reconcile that so that when you are, people know you mean business. And it's an important issue that needs to get done. Emotionally chaotic. Hey, I don't know about this one, but I would say that stands as another tool in your bag if somebody's trying to give you another project. Oh, he's too all over the place. He or she's too all over the place. You know what? Let's give it to somebody else who's a little more level-headed. Yeah, again, it's not the most advisable means of using as much. But I would also say that kind of shows a little bit of passion. Some people might see emotionally chaotic as evidence that, hey, you might care about somebody or something also, all right? So maybe it's a tool, maybe it's a strength in that regard. Having said that, I know it was a bit of a stretch there. I'm doing this on the fly. This was another one I could chalk up to maybe a little bit of a failure. But I think you get the point, all right? Our weaknesses can also be strengths. It just depends on the situation. And if you're worldly, capable, and magnetic, you're going to be able to figure out how to make that apply, I would argue. That said, I also like to argue don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether because it's a part of who you are, all right? It makes you who you are, and so there's got to be at least a little bit of value in that. Not to say we can't improve upon it, though. Having said that, your strengths and your weaknesses having gone over, let's move on to those born on this day. That's right. Let's see who shares your company. But before we do that, something I like to do is look at it through the prism of figuring out our passions. Too often in life, I get out in the world and ask folks what they do, more importantly if they like it, and they don't. And I think it's just because they got out of school and right into a job to make ends meet. But the fatal flaw is it wasn't something that was based on things they like. It was just something they had to do to make ends meet. And maybe over time they start climbing that corporate ladder. And like I said, at the fundamental base there, it has nothing to do with anything they're interested in. But maybe they're used to things. It's easy. Now they're making more money. They don't have to do as much work. And they're kind of caught in that trap there, all right? Focused on the cash. Not a bad thing. Don't want to be too judgmental about it because you need that cash. But what if we could figure out a passion and we could start driving towards that? Yeah, the problem is we don't have a lot of time and energy to do as much because it takes time, work, and energy sometimes to figure out things like that. Not just a passion, but sometimes what we even like to do. And so I think this is the perfect opportunity to lend an eye to as much, all right? And maybe we could just do that by seeing what other folks did and how they got in the book, all right? But if you already do have a passion, well then, hey, the hat I'm not wearing is off to you. Keep it up. Hopefully you also know how to make it financially viable for yourself. And here you can just see what lottery you drew. Who shares your company, all right? Because I think if there's anything that's more important than, I don't know, than wishing you a happy birthday, that it is figuring out a passion, something to have purpose to get out of bed in the morning. So let's get into it with that in mind. All right, we start off with Constantine the Great, a Roman 4th century emperor, and united the Eastern and Western empires and established the new capital, Constantinople, on the former site of Byzantium. And we also have, it says, tolerance for Christianity mixed March 21 as the spring equinox. All right, moving on. We have John Steinbeck, the American Nobel Prize-winning novelist of East of Eden and of Mice and Men. We also have Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, 19th century epic poet and responsible for the work by the name of Hiawatha. We also have Elizabeth Taylor, the film actress, Dexter Gordon, jazz tenor saxophonist and a film actor. We also have Rudolf Steiner, an Austrian-born anthroposophist. Not quite sure what that is. Also a founder and writer of Knowledge of Higher Worlds. We also have Ralph Nader, the pioneering consumer advocate, environmentalist, and writer of Unsafe at Any Speed. There's an individual who had a higher cause to chase after, interestingly enough. And we mentioned higher causes, so it must be baked in there to some extent. We also have Lawrence Durrell, a British novelist of Alexandria Quartet. We also have Irwin Shaw, a playwright and short story writer and a novelist of The Young Lions. We also have Joanne Woodward, a film actress. James T. Farrell, novelist of Studs Lonergan, or Lonergan, perhaps. We also have David Sarnoff, TV executive president of RCA and the father of the modern television, it says. We also have Lottie Lehman, soprano and writer of The Interpretation of Songs. We also have Lee Atwater, political strategist and, or strategist rather. I always say that wrong. Strategist and chairman Republican National Committee. We also have Arthur Schlesinger, historian and responsible for Paths to the Present. Hugo Black, a Supreme Court justice. John B. Connally, a Texas governor and shot in the car with JFK, but survived the single bullet, it says. We also have David H. Hubel, a Harvard Nobel Prize-winning neurobiologist. And we also have Alice Hamilton, a physician and social reformer, industrial toxicology pioneer, and lived to age 101. We also have Jean Sarazen, a golfer and a British Open, 2-time U.S. Open, and 3-time PGA winner. And that has been those born on this day. No telling how many of them may have had tumultuous relationships. I reckon Elizabeth Taylor may have, because I think she got married a number of times. But that doesn't mean anything necessarily. But like I said, there may be some historical precedent for the tumultuous relationship aspect. And that might be why they put it in a book. I don't know many of those folks, but very well could be. Very well could be. That having been said, hopefully you drew some inspiration there from these individuals and what they accomplished. Because like I said, if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, it's that you'll drive an after a passion. Doing backflips out of bed, whether literal or figurative, to get on with your day and chase after a purpose. So I wish that for you. I really do. That having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. I know I butchered a couple names in there, so let's make up for it on my side of things. Not done in malice, just hooked on phonics. Isn't the best tool for pronouncing names. But this has been The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers. Before I take us out, your season is winter. Your sign, once again, is Pisces, of the Pisces I period specifically. And your quality and elements is mutable water. And this has been February 27th, the day of the Reality Masters. Probably one of the most inventive titles I've seen in the book thus far. But if you're interested in picking up a copy of this here tome, all right, I have an affiliate link down in the description, right above a personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents. So if you're interested in picking up a copy, it's there for you. Save the hassle of having to type it in a browser. And you can do a deep dive into all the other days of the year and the zodiac signs, etc. Makes an awesome coffee table book if you're having company over. That's how it was introduced into my world, and you know what? All the better for it. That said, the book having been relayed, that's not what's important here. What's important here, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday. And for everybody else who joined us randomly or more ideally to celebrate, hey, I just want to say I hope you enjoyed yourselves, took something of value even though it wasn't your birthday, and you join us for your birthday reading. That said, I also want to thank you for the pleasure of your time. It's been a privilege to share your birthday with you. All right. So once again, happy birthday. Unless I forget, your daily numbers. All right. Get out there. Let the universe show you it's with you on your path. See, taste, touch, smell, intuit even just a little bit of the coincidences, the what do we call it? The synchronicities popping up there for you. And I think you'll understand why I brought it up. Hopefully block the sun out there for you. It's starting to blind me there. Here we go. In any event, once again, happy birthday and take care of yourselves, all right?